Welcome back to Giddy Up. It's time to catch up with Dean Evans from Winning Edge Investments to preview the big Group 1s in Sydney and Melbourne on a Saturday afternoon. Dino, hello to you. Can't wait, especially for this meeting at Randwick. Three really high-class Group 1s and hopefully, the rain stays away, which is probably unlikely.
Yeah, good morning, Gareth. And yeah, sort of super Saturday there at Randwick. Absolutely brilliant day. The Epsom, the Flight and the Metropolitan, three Group 1s. But unfortunately, that Sydney weather is coming in force, and I think we're probably looking at a heavy 9 type of track at the moment with the pretty substantial rain forecast from pretty much from today all the way through to Saturday.
Let's have a look at the first of the Group 1s there at Randwick on Saturday. And just before we do that, how do you think this track will play, Dino?
I think we're going to get into the heavy range.
Yeah.
In many cases that means, sweep pushing out wide. But, when we actually looked at what happened in the carnival in the autumn, we actually had some days where there was quite a strong leader bias. I think sort of to the Queen Elizabeth, Queen of the Turf, Oaks Day, when it was, a really bog heavy 10, and back in April, and it was very, very on pace, and it was so sort of wet that you couldn't make ground from the back at all. So, so certainly when we're betting in these Group 1 races, it'll be really critical to watch the first 4 or 5 races and just see whether that sort of wicked on pace bias is there because it's so wet that they actually can't make ground. But if it's a standard sort of heavy track, and I think it will be because it hasn't been raining anywhere near as much as it was back then, then I think it's going to play more like the standard Randwick where they'll just sort of get back and be able to swoop home out wide and really you'll just want to be avoiding the fence.
Of course, today's wagering update brought to you by Bet365, the world's favourite online betting company. Gamble responsibly. Call the gambling hotline on 1-800-858-858. Let's have a look at the Flight Stakes and the market with Bet365. Fireburn 260, She's Extreme 650, Sue Gotcha at 350, Wolverine at 750, and those are the fillies under double figures. Can Fireburn on the quick backup take out another Group 1 at Royal Randwick and win, of course, the Flight Stakes on Saturday?
Yeah, well, she was impressive in the Golden Rose, Golden Slipper winner. She ran the quickest last 1,000 metres of the day in the Golden Rose, plus 5.8 for last 1,000, which was quicker than Jacquinot. So she's certainly going well. The other big plus that she has is I'm always a big fan, particularly with these younger horses, but with any sort of horses when they're going onto the really heavy tracks at Randwick, coming off that 7-day backup is really a big advantage because they've just got that fitness advantage. And the Golden Rose certainly rated substantially stronger than the T Rose, which has traditionally been the main lead up to this race. With 10 of the last 11 winners all coming out of the T Rose, but the sectionals that they ran in the T Rose were very, very slow. They only went sort of plus 1.9 for the first section, but they were minus 6.8 for the second section. So they actually really struggled home. So you've really got to rate Fireburn and She's Extreme on top. Fireburn was a good run, the Golden Rose. It reminds me a little bit of Star Tontes last year, who sort of ran well and then flattened out a bit. She's Extreme, got a really good ride in the Champagne, but it was too strong for Fireburn over a mile as a 2-year-old. For me, the way that they map and coming up to the mile, I'm actually keener on She's Extreme at sort of $7 than Fireburn at $2.60. I think She's Extreme maps to get a really nice run here on sort of an average speed. You got North Star left pushing forward, and Pavitra and Zoo Gotcha, and I think She's Extreme to slot right behind them, whereas Fireburn will sort of be right out the back. And I think we could see similar to what we saw in the Champagne, where She's Extreme just sort of kicks away, and Fireburn, in the heavy bog going, is going to have to run down She's Extreme, who ran similarly well, I think, in the Golden Rose as it did sort of in the Stars Produce when Fireburn flashed straight past it in that race lead up as well. So I've got She's Extreme on top, to beat Fireburn with a map advantage. And I think the big improver and the only one out of the T rows that actually want to back is Wolverine, who he really slashed home, was held up badly in the T rows, and I think could have been fighting out the finish if you got clear running. Is drawn the fence, but the best jockey in Australia when you're drawing the fence is Jason Collett. He's really good at weaving a passage through and cutting the corner, and I think this is a horse who's always been looking for a mile plus its career, and if there's one out of the T rows that I think can jump out of the ground and figure it's Wolverine.
At Randwick in race number 8, it's the Epsom, it's the famous mile, and top ranked at 460. Luke Murrell from Australian Bloodstock told us on this show yesterday that he's the best horse in the country top ranked. So he's at 460 in the Epsom. You've got Ice Bath, who's flying at the moment at $4. Hinge at $4.60. Crosstalk at $8. And those are the gallopers under double figures here, Dean. How do you assess this year's Epsom?
Yeah, look, I do regard Top Rank really highly. The ratings I've had from him coming overseas, but also in his runs here, have been very strong. And they ran a good third to Lost and Running with a big weight, 58. It was only sort of a length off Very Elegant. His first up run was very impressive, and he ran some good sectionals to close off a very strong tempo. I actually advised members to back him in the Cox Plate at 50-1 before his Bill Ritchie run. I do think he's a genuine Group 1 horse. That went up with 59.5 kgs, and Bill Ritchie was impressive. The profile of second up horses in the Epsom usually isn't good. There's only been one win in the last 11 years second up. They're usually sort of third up, fourth up. But I think what's different here is how impressive and wound up he was first up in the Bill Ritchie, and the fact that he won that race so impressively. And really, the winner of this race usually comes from either the Bill Ritchie or the George Main. I think the only question mark is sort of that strong mile on a heavy track second up. But I think the fitness is on his side, and I do think Top Ranked is the one to beat. I think the main danger is Ice Bath. She's just racing in great heart. She's run seconds to Zaki and Animo, are the two best horses in the country at the moment. She ran third in the Doncaster, this track and distance in the autumn, and she wasn't going as well. She's been narrowly beaten in many Group 1s as well, the Cantala, the Doncaster, the Golden Eagle. So she's always been a top liner. The big advantage she gets here is James McDonald on board. And I think she loves it as well. So I've got it down to sort of Top Ranked in Ice Bath, rating clearly on top. And probably the only other one I think can win is Hinge, who is a Group 1 winner, is a 3-year-old hand, is a wet. Was a good third in the George Main, and I think just maps the best. And the key to this race, I think, Gareth, was what we sort of spoke about, is watching those early races. If they're swooping out wide, then it's Top Ranked and Ice Bath. But if they're struggling to make ground from the back, they'll be switching to Hinge, who was third in the George Main and drops from 56.5 to 51.5 here. So that's a sharp weight pull, and Kieran McAvoy will be able to sit here sort of third. Just behind, Crosstalk and Ellsberg will lead. And so, if it's on pace, Hinge will be hard to run down. But if it's playing a normal round way, then I think it's Top Ranked and Ice Bath clearly on top.
So that's a look at the Epsom on Saturday. We'll take a quick break with Dean Evans here on Giddy Up from Winning Edge Investments. And when we return, we'll preview the Metrop and also the Turnbull Stakes at Flemington on Saturday. Welcome back to Giddy Up. We're with Dean Evans from Winning Edge Investments. It's time to preview the Metrop at Randwick on Saturday and having a look at the market here. Thanks to Bet365, we've got Stockman at $8. Geez, I'm keen on Ladon de V with the rain around at $7.50. Durston's in red hot form for Chris Waller at $3.60. And then Surefire, that won't probably be taking his place. He'll head to Flemington. He's at $10. Grove Ferry at $8. Is the only other galloper under double figures. What do you think in this year's Metrop here, Dean?
Yeah, look, 9 of the last 11 winners were third or fourth up. It's a race where most of the winners sort of come off a 2-week break. Waller's won 4 of the last 9 and run second twice. Interestingly, for a 2,400 metre race, it's a race that the winner usually comes from the first half of the field. Nothing settling worse than sort of 8th early as one. So the horses that are really way out the back often struggle to actually come home and win a Metrop. I'm with you, Gareth. I'm really keen on Ladon de V. This horse has been flying since it joined the Kieran Maher stable. Absolutely bolted in to win the Caloundra Cup. 2 starts back. when you go through its form lines, it seems patchy, but the point that stands out is, when it's on a good track, it seems to battle, but as soon as it finds a bit of cut out of the ground, like when it won the Warrnambool Cup as well, it tends to absolutely bolt in once it gets to 2,400 metres in a wet track by 2 or 3 lengths, and it just grows a leg. I think that Kieran Maher stable, once they get to 2,400 metres plus, just have an incredible profit on turnover following them, and J-Mac on board. So, I'm very keen on the Don DeVee. Stockman's probably the class there of the field with his Group 1 second in the Tankwood last prep, and he absolutely loves wet tracks. I think the only knock on him is he does get a long way back, and historically those horses that sit right at the back struggle to win. You got Mancayan, who's another from the Mar Eustace stable, who was a model of consistency before his last start, where he was a bit flat. Tongue Tie goes on, which I'm never a big fan of, but the stable has a strong record over the distance range, and no compromise, sort of beat Surefire and Chalk Stream this distance last prep on a wet track. So he's probably the other horse who can bob up. Durston's flying, but with this very heavy track, I think the big question mark around Durston is he's never run on a track that's wet, so you're sort of taking him on trust as the favourite. So I'm keen on the Don DeVee. It's definitely the one I want to back. And I think sort of no compromise. Stockman and Mancayan are probably the dangers.
And at Flemington, the Group 1's the Turnbull Stakes, and we've got Duaz at 460. I'm fascinated to see how she goes there at headquarters. Profondo at $9. We'll also have Inspirational Girl that's had a little bit of backing with Bet365 at $13. Gold Trip's been the best backed, however. $3.80 now for Kira Maher and David Eustace, and Jamie Carr rides here, Dean.
Yeah, really, really interesting race. 10 of the last 11 winners have been third or fourth up. So this is, obviously the race that these horses target and sort of go in the fork to the road to depend on whether they go for the cups or, a Cox Plate. And the honour roll of this race is incredible. Winks, Very Elegant, Incentivise, Hartnell Preferment, Chia Valentina and Green Moon. So it's always a great race. Chris Waller has quite an incredible record in this race. He's won 5 of the last 11 and run second another 4 times. He's even trained the trifecta a couple of times. So his horses always go very well here. And I think there'll be a decent speed. Knight's Order likes to clip along pretty quickly in front, and you got sort of Prondo, Namirian and Milford that'll settle just behind. I think there's a chance for some value in this race. This race can bob up a decent priced winner, and you got Jouet who failed its last 3 starts and pulled up lame last start, and that's not usually sort of what you want from a second favourite at $4.50. Gold Trip, his Group 1 form in France is exceptional, and he was a good third last start on the Naturalism, but that's sort of the B grade form. He obviously gets a 7 kg weight pull on the winner here for a 1-length defeat. But this is sort of a race where Gold Trip has to really prove himself and show how he measures up, and you're getting a pretty skinny price to find out. I think the horse is really underrated, Gareth, is Numerian. His form overseas was just as good as Gold Trip. I think he ran second to narrow seconds to 2 Cox Plate horses. The Kieran Maher horse who won the Cox Plate and the Armory ran second in the Cox Plate, and it's taken a while for him to acclimatise to Australia, but he's starting to really sort of find his straps and his best form now. It was pretty impressive once he got to Queensland, where he won the PGA O'Shea Stakes over 2,200. And beat the likes of Maximal there, and he was a good second first up in the Chelmsford. He's a bit better with the cut out of the ground, but I think he maps quite nicely here, just behind the speed. John Allen aboard, who's great over the staying races, and Annabelle Neesham, who anything above 2,000 metres, at the moment she's got something like a 70% profit on turnover. It's absolutely remarkable. I think Marian's one to beat. I think Surefire strikes a proper, dry track for the first time in his Australian career. And he's another who's really highly regarded from overseas. He sprinted really well first up over 1,400, which was the driest track he's been exposed to, and I think he's a really big improver. And I even think horses like Great House and Crystal Pegasus are really underrated. Crystal Pegasus is another one who, was taking all before him with 4 wins in a row last prep, and just his last 3 starts, he's been on bog-heavy tracks and hasn't handled them at all. So if he's going as well as he was last prep, then, even he's a horse who can measure up. And, this is just a race where I just think there's enough convictions in the favourites with Jouet, having to turn around 3 awful runs, and Gold Trip sort of just being really, really priced to his absolute best overseas form when, we've got to remember that he's still coming back off a 400-day break in this campaign. So, I've got Numerian as big value around $19. Chris Waller's record with horses who are up-and-comers this race is just exceptional, right? So I do think the likes of Surefire, Great House and Crystal Pegasus are not bad. And Chapada for a place bet, would place in both the Group 1 Turnbull and Australian Cup with track distance last prep. And he's progressing well, and you can probably run a place again here. And I just think this is a race where I think we could see a really big price winner bob up.
It's going to be a great day's racing. The 3 Group 1s in Sydney, terrific support program there as well at Randwick, and then the Turnbull Stakes and at Flemington on Saturday. Good on you, Dino. Thanks for that, mate.
Cheers, Gareth. Good luck.